Argentina, actually before I went down to Argentina, I was kind of wondering how it would be received, me being an American composer going down and writing about a subject that is so close to the Argentine people. And I found out that they were very warm. They actually were very much welcomed the idea of having an American composer do this material. Ever since I was a kid, I've always loved ships, especially naval ships. I grew up in New York City, and one of the most fun things to do is my dad used to find out when the ships were coming into New York Harbor, and he'd take me down, and it was a very enjoyable part of my childhood. Back in 1982, I was a music student in California, and I saw a picture in a news magazine of the cruiser Belgrano sinking in the Malvinas War. If you're looking at music as being a manifestation of the emotions, well, a composer is going to look for something that really strikes him on a very personal level. And in my case, the story of the loss of the Belgrano really strikes me on that level. I was asking myself where to start, and I wanted to start with the lyric, with the text. And I wanted it to be a voice of a woman. I wanted them to all be voices of women. So I asked my good friend, poet and writer Angela Rubio, to come up with a lyric, and I gave her one direction only, to write it from the point of view of a woman who lost someone on the Belgrano.
When Joe and I met in the summer of 2007 to talk about this project, he showed me a picture of the Belgrano ship as it was sinking just after it had been torpedoed. There were all these lifeboats, bright orange, strewn about the ocean, and they had the words capacidad, capacidad, capacidad 20, capacity of 20. That's how many each lifeboat could hold. You really got a strong sense of chaos and of destruction and of death. And it didn't take long to realize that you were looking at a graveyard. Joe and I talked about what a woman might feel once she learned that she'd lost a loved one on that ship. And of course there'd be grief, of course there'd be sorrow, lots of tears and mourning. But I thought she'd be angry, very angry about so many things. Women understand loss, and they understand it if they haven't experienced them themselves. They will experience it. They hear it through their mothers. They hear it from their grandmothers. They think about the children that they'll have and the future for them. But I feel that the poem, my poem, is really a universal lament.
I knew I was looking at a multi-movement song cycle, so I wanted to continue the theme of women, loss, and the sea. Several years ago, a friend of mine from Miami told me about a poet named Alfonsina Storni, and I was really moved by her poetry, especially her last poem, Voy a Dormir, which was written essentially as her suicide note. In my research for the piece, I found out that Alfonsina died in October of 1938, and I also found out that that was the same month and the same year that the Belgrano took to sea. It was commissioned in October 1938 as the USS Phoenix. So if you believe that ships have kind of a soul, the way I was looking at it is that Alfonsina died at the same month that the Belgrano was born. At this point, it was starting to become clear to me that I would need a very good singer, preferably a singer from Argentina, and someone who was familiar with the language and could bring the proper emotional content to this piece, to this song. So I was drawing a blank, and I was on a musician friend's Facebook page advertising a concert in Los Angeles, and I see this picture of this young woman, and I see this name. I see the name Guadalupe Cristina, and I'm going, wow, Cristina, that's my name. It's kind of a rare name. And I thought, well, I'm going to contact her. Let's send a friend's request through, and maybe she's in Los Angeles.
It was a very funny situation because we were both invited to go to this concert, which it was going to be performed in LA, and of course I could not go because I was in Argentina. It was then when Joe told me about the Big Runner project, and I thought it was interesting for me to get to know about the point of view of a foreign composer, about an event of our Argentine history.
I wanted the text for the last movement to be something a little more uplifting, a little more positive, because the other pieces are a little dark in nature. So I asked Guada to come up with a text.
As I was listening to Joe's instructions, I started searching through the web about the Malvinas War, and I saw many different images about these young soldiers who died in that war, and I thought that it was important for the last song to have a message of hope, that it would be much more of a kind of a religious and spiritual song, and that's how I titled it, You'll See Him Again.
Sin entender las razones de las luchas contra nosotros, veo el mundo, un lugar de paz. Sin lograr poder verlo de nuevo, veo el mar y me dice, lo volverás a ver, lo volverás a ver. Te escucho cerca y lejos, aún siento la furia del dolor de haberte perdido, pero la música del viento canta con tu voz y me dices, estoy aquí, junto a ti.
The Orange County Symphony was started in 1985, so this is technically coming up this season as the 25th anniversary of the symphony. And the Wind Symphony was started in 2008 for two reasons. A, because I have a passion for wind band music, and B, I think it's extremely relevant in today's musical society. We're seeing the upstart of several new professional wind symphonies that are not associated with the military bands. The first, of course, probably being the Dallas Wind Symphony, and then moving around in various areas of the country in the larger metropolitan cities. So I think it's really important that we have the same quality wind band here in Southern California. And next year we're going on tour, on our first national tour to Carnegie Hall, culminating with a performance at the New York Wind Band Festival at Carnegie Hall. And next summer we're also going to be performing in conjunction with a professional band from China at Disney's Concert Hall.
I went to Argentina for the first time last October 2009, and I met Guada, I met the Cristina family, I met some really fine musicians, I met some fine conductors, concert promoters, and I was very pleased that they were very interested in my project. We're having this performance in September in the United States, and that's lovely. But I don't think that this project is complete until I bring the music back to Argentina to do it in essence where my initial inspiration was from. So the music in a way is kind of going back home. As a composer, when I think of American music, I don't think of music from the United States. I think about music of all the Americas. When I went down and met the Cristina family in Buenos Aires, that concept to me became not abstract, but became very, very real.
It's a beautiful piece, and to hear it, to hear the music, to hear it sung is a wonderful experience.
I think there's a renewed interest for this music here in this integrated community where we have such a large population of Hispanics and Latin Americans here, and it's a vital and integral part of our community here in Southern California.
When Joe offered me to be the main vocal of this project, I felt so surprised, and I felt so happy because I've never done anything like this before, and the idea of me going to America as an invited singer, it's a dream come true actually. It's more than I could describe with words.
When we get to a certain age, we all experience a loss of a loved one in our life. And when I was writing the music for the Belgrano pieces, I not only thought of the men who were lost on that ship, but I thought of my own losses in my life. And so in a way this piece is a love story, and it's also a piece about remembrance.